YouTube, welcome back, and welcome back to the third installment of the P-pump conversion on my truck. In this video we are focusing on the oil system and the fuel system. So made a couple mistakes on the way, figured out some pretty, I think, good solutions to some issues, and I think there's a lot of good content in there. I tried to get in detail of everything that I did for you guys, so hope you all enjoy. Stay tuned and enjoy the show. Alright, we're going to talk about fuel pumps. It's time to put my lift pump in. This is what I'm using for a lift pump, mechanical lift pump. This is a stock Cummins piece that I installed in that old 12 valve quite a few years ago. Should work great on this application. I'm not going for 1,000 horsepower. I don't need a big fast fuel system on this thing. Stock will do more than what this motor should ever see for horsepower, as long as I have it anyway. That, and I don't have a budget for $1,000 fast lift pump for this thing, and I don't want to have to deal with it either. Like, there's a whole bunch more fabrication that has to happen to put one of those in. This thing literally will bolt onto a 24 valve block, or at least my 24 valve block. I don't know if they all came provisioned for a mechanical lift pump. I would assume they did, because these motors really at their core are industrial minded motors, so it's very likely that all the 24 valves came with this provision already on them. They just blocked it off and used an electric lift pump on the automotive applications. It really wouldn't be that much. I mean, actually it'd be easier, because this is a high pressure mechanical lift pump. I mean, theoretically, you could use this thing to run a fuel injection system on a car, because it pushes like 40 psi, and decent flow too, because these diesel motors, they need a lot of fuel to flow through them just to run the system and to keep the injection pump cool. They flow a lot through them. So, all reality, this is a very good pump, a very strong pump. It's just not 1,000 horsepower strong. So, really can't fault the pump for that, and I don't have the money to go bigger or the time to go bigger. This bolts right in. I don't have to worry about it. Just one thing to keep in mind, if you do this, there's two things you got to do, and I should have talked about this earlier, but oh well, we'll catch it now. Main reason I changed the cam is to put the 12 valve cam in it, because the 12 valve cam comes with the eccentric for the mechanical lift pump. Without that, you don't have an eccentric, which then you have nothing to drive this little plunger right here, and this fuel pump does nothing. It'll bolt on the side block, but nothing will happen. No squirty out of this end. So that was the main reason for changing the cam on the truck. The other reason is that one was a performance cam that I bought a long time ago, and why leave a performance cam sitting in some broken block when I was right there? I had to take the cam out anyway. It just took me 20 minutes to run over to brother's house to press on and off the gear, and done. So just a no-brainer here. It's cheap. Again, this build is supposed to be basically $0. I'm going to change the oil when I'm done, and I bought all new gaskets for everywhere I'm touching. But beyond that, I'm trying to manufacture my own, like I did on the cam sensor adapter, or use stock stuff. So that's the idea anyway. Hopefully it works out and I don't end up spending a boatload of money on this thing, but remains to be seen. We're just getting started. So I'm going to go slap this bugger in and continue moving forward. We're going to get this bracket in. This is the P-pump support bracket. This is going to go in next. I got the tappet cover on, and I got to get this oil line on. I got to get the other one off. Unfortunately, I used the other line. So this one goes to the P-pump, and then there's another one that comes out the bottom that goes to the vacuum pump. And I stole this one for the Blue Bomber project. And I think I threw the old one from the Blue Bomber away, which is a real bummer, because while it leaked, it didn't leak that bad. It just was wet and made things wet around it. So I was like, oh, hey, I have this good one over here. I'll just swap it. So that's a bummer. I would have probably just put it on and then ran it, just called it good for a little while, and then when I had time, changed it. Because you can change this thing without taking a bunch of stuff apart. It's not super easy, but you can do it. And I'll run by Parker store and just have them make me a new one. I mean, it's probably going to cost me like $50 for a new one, but I think I found one on Gino's Garage, which is like $80. So, and I don't have to wait for it. I'll have it when I get home tomorrow, and I'll screw it on and be done with this part of the project. So I think that's what I'm going to do. So yeah, these are the next few things that are going on. And then I'm going to assess from there, and I think I'm going to start messing with, after I'm done with that, I'm going to start messing with the throttle linkage project. I think that's going to be easier to do here on the bench than trying to lean over the side of the truck and mess with that. So I don't think I'm going to put the pump in next, even though I could. I will probably just kind of throw the gear in, throw the cover over it, so I'm sealing things up, and maybe move on to getting the injectors out and mess with this. Sad day. Went to go put the Cummins 12 valve T fitting in, this little guy, and 24 valves, they changed from a pipe fitting right here to a O-ringed fitting. So this, well, I'd throw it for, dramatic effect, but I don't really want to break something because like there's paint behind me, and I got my beer right there. Too many things I don't want to break. So, but yeah, this is junk. Got to rethink this. Probably gonna have to buy one of those stupid adapter things, which sucks. Because yeah, I didn't want to do that. I wanted the nice clean design that factory did, but oh well. More to follow on that project, I guess. Alright, so we're talking fuel. I think I've got it all figured out how I'm going to do this. So right here is the, oops, that's not it. This one. That is the factory fuel line coming in right there. And it has to plumb into here. And then from here, comes out here to the pump. And then back over to, there's a T fitting down here. I don't know if I can get to where you can see it or not. Yeah, so that little fitting there is the return. And I've still got it kind of disassembled from teardown. But, so I got to connect this to this, to this, to the pump, to that. And here's how I'm going to do this. So first step is connecting to the fuel pump. So this little guy right here is the factory original connection. It plugs right into that line right there. And it is a banjo setup. And so what I decided to do is that line will go nice and smooth right up to this fuel pump. So, and it's a regular pipe thread that goes onto this guy. And I got to looking at it, and I was like, you know what? It'd be really easy to turn that little pipe plug into a banjo fitting. So, we're going to just do this. Oops. I don't know if I can do this one-handed or not. I think you guys get the gist of what I'm trying to do here. And then that creates my quick connect fitting. Bam, and more bam. So, quick, easy. That took me like 2 seconds on the lathe to turn that little guy into a banjo fitting. Just faced it real quick, and it's a metric thread. It's just a standard metric thread. I can't remember what size it was, 10 millimeter or something or other. No, it's not 10 millimeter. That's the tap. Tap was 10 millimeter. Anyway, doesn't really matter. It was easy to do. But as you can see, that's just a regular old pipe plug. That was originally piped there too. I just drilled it out and made it work. So that's quick and easy there. Super simple. Then we're going to come back over here to the bench. And from the pump, we got this factory fitting here. And this is just, it was probably purchased as 8 millimeter by Cummins, because everything on these things is metric, but 8 millimeter, 5/16, same difference. So I got to connect from here to this port on the side of the fuel filter housing. So what I'm going to do there is I need a, they make compression fittings, adapters that go over to AN. And I'm not sure if I can get it in a push lock or not, but if I can get it in a push lock, that's the way I want it. But I can get a compression fitting adapter that adapts me over to, I know AN because I've bought those before, And from here, I'll cut this off somewhere in here and adapt this thing over to AN, get another one of these because I don't have enough of them, and just bring this thing over in 5/16 AN, attach it over here, bam, done, easy. And then from here, this fitting is going to come off right here, and this is the pressure line over to the pump, over to here, bam, to right here. So then I've got two of these. This is leftovers from the original stuff for the 24 valve, and this is -8 AN line, and I got tons of that up here. I love this stuff. Push lock, Aeroquip. This stuff is awesome. This stuff holds up to everything and anything I've ever thrown at it, and I think it's rated to like 1500 psi, so it doesn't wear out. Like, I have yet to actually pull a piece of it off that was wore out. Like, this stuff you can see is kind of cracked down there, and this is like another type of push lock kind of hose that you would get at Parker store. Aeroquip you have to order. I don't know where you get it other than On Track here in Denver or online. But like, I've never seen the stuff even crack like this. It really is tough stuff. So there's that. That brings me over here. That brings me to my pressure, and then I just have to get the rest of my return in. I will probably reuse this factory line down here to about here, and then I'm going to use another one of these compression fittings here and go over to another -4. And this, no, that's not it. This is the fitting, which is just a super simple O-ringed doodad thing. I don't know, if I had more time and actually cared more, I would delete all this and put AN fittings in all these places, but I don't care that much, and I just don't want to take the time. So I will take this guy, cut it off somewhere around in here, do a compression fitting to AN-4 and compression fitting AN-4, connect all these two together with some line, and I am good to go. I think that will do the entire fuel system on this thing, and yeah, not too bad price-wise. And all really good push lock fittings. Should last a really long time and be leak free. So that's the plan. All right, good morning. And here we go again with some more of the P-pump swap on my 24 valve. Just got back from town. As you can see, got lots of AN goodness here. Working on getting the fuel system and the oil system done on this thing. Where I left you guys yesterday, we got the fuel system plumbed up to the lift pump. Got the lift pump in. Now we're trying to go from the lift pump to the fuel filter to the injection pump, and then back to the tank. So what we're going to do is, this is the line that comes up off of the lift pump, so it sits down here about somewhere in there. And as you can see, this one was made for the P-pump truck. We're going to lop this guy off somewhere around in here, and we're going to use one of these fittings, these little compression. This is a 5/16, aka 8 millimeter, just a regular compression fitting that's rated up to 150 psi. So should handle this without any issues. I mean, this thing should never see over 100, so we should be good there. And then that goes up to a -6 AN fitting, just like this guy. And that's going to go to there. So this will probably orient, like, I'm gonna have to put a bend in here, so I'll probably bend this somewhere around in here, put that guy on there like that. I might dig around, see if I got a 45 instead of this straight. I've got a bunch of this kind of stuff laying around too, so that's going to come out there, go up there via some of this wonderful Aeroquip hose. Went ahead and bought some more today, because you know what, you really can't have too much of this stuff, and I'd rather, I use this on anything. I don't use any of the regular rubber stuff anywhere. I don't care if I'm working on a lawnmower or if I'm working on on a aircraft. Like I only use good quality hose because as much as expensive as this stuff is, it's just worth it because it doesn't leak. It doesn't wear out in a week with today's fuels rotting it to pieces. It's just awesome stuff. So we're gonna do push lock, push that sucker down on there. No clamps. You can tell push lock fittings by the design of them. They've got kind of a little bit of an undercut there as well. And there's only 2 barbs on them. And so these things are awesome. There's no clamps necessary. Once I shove this onto this hose, the only way to get this off is to cut it off. Like, it will not come off of here. This aluminum will probably break before this comes off. So that's going to go onto there. And then we've got fancy AN style banjo fitting that, surprise, just happens to be the same size as our factory banjo nuttage here. And that's going to go on there, which is going to go on the side of our filter, just like so. And hooray for me, I was a little worried here, but it looks like it's going to work out. I didn't think there was going to be clearance for this fitting, but it looks like there is. I thought maybe I was going to have to use this fitting because it doesn't have the AN, it just has the push lock, and stick it up here instead. But it looks like this has got plenty of clearance, so that's awesome. Win there. From there, we go from the bottom of this bad boy over to our injection pump. And I probably should drag that into this view so you guys can see what we're doing here entirely. Yeah. From here, we come over to this banjo fitting. And we did that originally with a line that is flipping around in here somewhere. That's the return. Well, it doesn't matter. We're going to use wherever my banjo bolt went. Doesn't really matter. Here's another one. I went ahead and bought a few, and I'll get to that in a minute as to why I did that. Here we go. So this guy, I'm going to screw in here on the side of the pump, like so. Oh, correction, no he's not. I did not realize that. Sucky day, this is bigger, and I could have got a bigger one while I was in the store. Son of a... Okay, all is not lost. This is why, whenever I go to the store and buy fittings, I always buy more than I need. I bought 4 of these guys. So, what we're going to end up doing is we're going to lop this, because this is the original fuel pressure line, goes up here, and went over to the factory, went up here somehow. I don't remember how it went. Anyway, I think something's in the way on the back. They went up here, kind of similar to this, and went to the P-pump style fuel filter housing, which the outlet on it was on the top, not the bottom, so this doesn't work. But hey, we'll use this compression fitting, lop this guy off, bam, screw on another AN fitting, just like that, bam, and we'll come down here to some AN line, snake it around to the bottom, just like that, put this guy down here, which should actually be the right size, I hope. I guess I gotta take that one apart too, but it looks the same. This one visually is the same size, whereas visually that was clearly huge, enormous. Yeah, so this will work. So, crisis averted, still have everything I need. That's going to come over here to that bad boy, which then goes through all the mechanically goodness of the P-pump and makes, you know, high pressure squirty things out that end. And then comes out over here on the return. I'm going to keep this return line on here, and over here where, I don't know what happened here, if I changed this or what, I don't really know. As you can see, this hose is kind of wet. This is the reason why you don't use this junk, is this is a little wet here and it was obviously leaking. So we're going to get rid of this and use this compression fitting, bam, and that is going to take the place of this factory original 24 valve return line, which is going to come over here to this funky little fitting. And maybe one day I'll delete this. Right now I don't care. I think I know how I can delete it pretty easily. Had I bought some more of these and a T fitting, a -6T, I could have easily deleted that today, but whatever. We'll deal with it another day. This will work. So we're going to put one of these guys somewhere on this pipe in here-ish, and one over here, and some more -6, and we have a return line. It is bigger than what we need, I know. This really didn't need to be a -6. It could have been a -5, which is essentially 5/16, and been a little more correct, I guess you could say, but I frankly don't care. I prefer doing it this way. It's just a little simpler. Parts are easier to get. Everybody has -6 who deals with AN. -5 can be kind of challenging to find sometimes. I actually did find it on track down here in Denver is where I bought all this stuff. Shop locally owned, good business. They're awesome. It's the only race shop that I know of in like the Colorado region, and they stock everything you can imagine. If you have the opportunity to buy from them, go in and buy from them. Let's keep them open. We want to keep good locally owned businesses alive and well in this world, and not go to places like Jegs unless we have to. Yeah, Jegs is cheaper, but big corporation as compared to family owned business. I definitely vote keep the family owned business alive, even though I probably could have saved at least 25-30% on this purchase. But Jegs isn't in town. These guys are also right at the bottom of the hill. So that's, generally speaking, the fuel system. I think it's going to work, and it's going to do pretty good for me, I think. I might use this fitting in lieu of one of these AN ones. I don't really know yet. I kind of like these a little better because they're just cleaner, less fittings, but it's also kind of nice that, with the AN banjo, I can have the banjo on here and have it tightened down and never have to really mess with it again. If I want to take this guy off, I just unscrew the AN, and I have a actual like hose, that I can take on and off and not mess with these banjo fittings, which, the factory Dodge ones, the washer that goes in there is this little guy, and it's a rubber thing. I don't know, I think it's probably a steel washer with a rubber impregnated. I'm not really sure. I think I have a magnet over here we can find out. Yeah, so it's a steel washer, rubber impregnated, and this rubber eventually tears and then they leak. You can replace them with a copper washer. That's not a big deal. But, the less you have to take these things apart, the better. So, I don't know. At the same time, I like the clean look of these things with less fittings. So, we'll see. Kind of remains to be seen how I decide to go about this. So moving on from the fuel system is the oil system, and this is the solution I've got for that. So this guy right here So this job right here is how the, actually I think this one on this end, didn't it? 24 valve oiled the vacuum pump right here. And just a simple 10 millimeter O-ring fitting off the side of the block in the same position as the 12 valve. The one major change is they went from a pipe plug or pipe fitting right here to this O-ring fitting, and everything else about this is the same. This is the same oil line, same configuration. Everything sits about like this on the side of the motor. Goes up here, vacuum pump sits right here, and that's all well and good, and it works. And a lot of people, from what I've seen online, seem to leave this in place, and they use a different fitting farther down the oil galley to feed the oil to their P pump. I like keeping things as close to stock as I possibly can, especially with this kind of stuff, because it's just better. And honestly, like what I'm gonna do now to replace this stuff, maybe one day I'll have an issue. Well, if I can find a Cummins dealer, I can go down. I'll be able to go right down to the road, down the road to the Cummins dealer and buy, or possibly even AutoZone, and buy a oil feed line for, you know, a 24 valve or P pump or whatever motor, and it'll bolt right into place. So that's really my main goal here with why I'm doing what I'm doing, rather than changing stuff up. And one of my main driving reason for that is when you're traveling, you know, I use this truck to mostly pull my rock crawler or my boat, and sometimes I do cross country trips. And if you have an issue here and all you got is race parts and stuff that you did all custom and crazy, you know, and you're sitting on the side of the road, you're kind of stuck on the side of the road. Whereas if you keep this stuff as close to stock as possible and use your racy parts where you need them and only where you need them, and spend a little extra money to make sure they're done really well, you know, it works out in the long run a lot safer, a lot more reliable, and a little less custom, if you will. So if you can imagine the way the P-pump truck worked, and I don't have the other half. I think I mentioned that before. I used this line. So this is the 24 valve line. It's a little different. It's got two 90s on it. The P-pump style, one of these 90s is a straight. It came straight off the bottom and curled around to the vacuum pump. And the other major difference is this fitting is pipe instead of this O-ringed flange setup, right? So this assembly will not fit on the 24 valve block. This hose would, if I could get this to screw in. So I could take that guy off, and maybe I could, but that's a pipe fitting there. So yeah, that's just a pipe fitting. So this does not go into there unless I chuck this thing in the lathe and I drilled it out, and that's just a pain in the ass. I get the 4-jaw chuck out to grab this thing, and it's a bitch to get that thing set up and everything squared. So yeah, we're just not gonna do that. Throw that crap in the trash. On track again to the rescue. It sells a wonderful 10 millimeter O-ring / flange fitting to dash 4 AN, and we've got a, don't worry about that little guy, dash 4T. So we're going to do that to that, and then from here we're just going to mimic essentially what the factory did. So we're going to take this fitting and it's going to go here, and then we're going to use a 90 up top, and that's going to go to our P-pump, and we're going to use some more Aeroquip, and we're going to stick that on there just like so and make our line. So we'll be able to cut this to be just about the same length as that, figure in the lengths of those as relation to those, and we can pretty much mathematically just build this thing on the bench and have it just bolt right into the side of the pump. So that's going to be pretty awesome. And then the same thing is going to happen on the bottom. We're going to go straight out the bottom with a nice straight down to a 90, and then some more Aeroquip hose. And just like that, we've got ourselves an oil system. So this chunk of hose is rated to 400 psi. It definitely stands up to engine oil without any issues. Also stands up to diesel fueled without any issues. This is a push lock. This is this stuff's a little cheaper. It's what you get from Parker store. And this is old. I mean, this chunk of hose is probably, I mean, it was on the truck when I got the truck. And I'll bet you this has got, I mean, I've put 200,000 on this truck, so it's got at least 200,000 miles on it. And the outer sheath here is cracking. Probably can't see that in the picture. But looking inside, like the inner, I mean, that inner rubber is perfect. No issues there. So, like, this stuff will hold up to the oil. It'll hold up to the fuel. Then the only other question is abrasion resistance. And, it's this stuff, and this is why I like this stuff better than this. This has got this really tough, I don't know what they use, but this outer cover is super strong and deals with abrasion very well. If I was at all concerned about it, I could always put some wire loom over this and give it that added little bit of abrasion resistance that it would maybe need, or even just wrap some electrical tape around it. Surprisingly enough, that works really well. Electrical tape somehow is tougher than most metals when it comes to rubbing. So really, yeah, I mean, this is going to be rated to not as high as this, but it's never going to see these. It's never going to see its max operating pressures, so it really does not matter. The only other concern, and let's say it's a little bit of a concern for me, is vibration, being that this is a diesel and Cummins vibrate a lot. I'm a little concerned about that, and that's one reason why I'm trying to build this to match exactly the way the factory would have done it. Really, the only thing that doesn't interchange, like that screws right onto that. So if I ever have an issue, like I can, worst case, like if I ever had an issue, I could delete this T off of here and run it straight up to the P pump on top and just not even oil the vacuum pump. You know, who cares if I burn up a vacuum pump? I have hydraulic assist brakes. Like, I'll still have my brakes. The only thing I won't have is heater controls on my dash or four-wheel drive. Like, that's the only two things that the vacuum system even operates on this truck. So, you know, worst case scenario, if I did find I was having issues and I was out somewhere and let's say this T broke off, you know, I can always keep a little extra piece of this in the truck and an extra 90 and just thread this all on. And actually, I just realized I didn't even need that fitting. Silly me. I could have just bought that guy, threaded it right on like that. I guess that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put that factory fitting right back in its hole. We'll keep this for another project another day, because you never know when you need crazy stuff like this. And that's going to be it right there. So yeah, worst case scenario, if this ever broke because of vibrations and started to leak or decided to dump all the oil out, we just unscrew that, throw that in the garbage can, take one of our 90s, screw it on here, pull this hose off really quick, make a new line, shove it together on the side of the road. We're going down the road. We're happy. Or hey, I could always throw one of these in there too. You know? Stuff doesn't take that much space. It's light. It's easy to deal with. It's one of the greatest things about AN fittings, I think. Last, touch on expense here. This is a lot of money. You know, fittings are not cheap, especially since COVID land. Like, everything has gotten so expensive. It's just ridiculous how expensive everything has gotten. And you guys have heard me say, like, I'm trying to do this on a budget, right? I only want to spend so much money on this project, and I'm trying to keep to that budget. I'm doing whatever I can to make things, build things, do whatever. And then here I just went and spent just about $300 on all these fittings. Yes, you heard me right, like $300. Am I going to use all this stuff? No. Like, there's going to be quite a few fittings here that are going to go into the AN drawer and be hanging around for the next project. My opinion on that, fuel systems, oil systems are not a place to skimp. Make room in your budget for this stuff. If you can save money somewhere else, like, this is one of the reasons I made that little bracket for the cam sensor. That's $80 that went to fittings instead of a little bracket. So if I had bought that little fitting for the cam sensor instead of making one, you know, I would have skimped here and there, and I probably could have whittled this down. I wouldn't have bought as much hose either. I would have been a much, like, how much hose do I need exactly, and then bought that. But I do this the way I do this, and I bought all this big pile of stuff because, especially when it comes to plumbing, you just never know. You sit here and stare at stuff for hours and plan it all out and think it all out, and you're like, all right, I know exactly how this is going to work. I know exactly what I'm going to do. And then you start going together with it, and then you pull apart this one fitting, and you go to plug it in, and you go, oh, shit. It doesn't fit. What do I do? Well, guess what? Now you're going back into town. You know, for me, it's an hour round trip down and back to get to OnTrack. So, and then you got the time, 20, you know, I stood in line for 10 minutes, and then, you know, 20 minutes standing there talking to Tony and shooting shit and all that stuff and waiting on them to go get the parts and then drive back up here, all because, you know, I didn't take this apart and made sure that it fit into this one, right? From here, I'm going to start taking this giant pile of parts and assemble it into something that makes sense and see how it all works out and see what I end up having to change from here. But I think this is all going to work out and I'm going to be able to make this stuff work. So I'm going to get after it and get all this put in, and I'll give you an update from there. All right, working on the oil system for the pump and the vacuum pump. One of the things I had to do was put this bracket in. Sorry for the jiggling around here, but it's kind of hard to hold all this. But I put that support bracket for the P-pump in here. Those holes right there are oversized and are made so that you put the pump in, bolt it up, bolt the bracket to the pump, and then you bolt the bracket to the block and tighten it that way. And then I can put the vacuum pump in and install the oil line. But you can't get to all that stuff with the vacuum pump out. Of note, if you're doing this, there's a difference. This is the second time I'm doing this. This is the bolts out of the 12 valve. This is the bolts out of the 24 valve. They both did the same thing with the same looking bracket and the same position. The 24 valve is considerably shallower of a hole, so they used a shorter bolt. Why they did that, I have no idea. But bolted all this stuff up, tightened my bolts down, took the pump out, and went to bolt up the power steering pump and vacuum pump, and the bracket just fell out of place. So doesn't even come close to working. Make sure you use the correct length bolt when you do this, and don't mess that up or you'll end up with a cracked timing cover case. So the other thing I'm finding is oil wise, I'm gonna have to get creative. I know there's some talk on forums about this, but there is not much space in there. I actually had to take the oil feed line fitting off in order to mock the pump up. So that's going to be kind of fun. I'm having to get creative there. I'm thinking a banjo bolt. I'm going to have to probably manufacture one myself though, so that's going to be really fun. So more to follow on that. That's going to get complex. Getting to this bolt is a royal bitch. I see why a lot of people, or why there's talk about cutting this ear off of the block now for sure, because yeah, there's not much room. Funny thing though, that is a 5/8 spark plug socket, and that actually works pretty good. I may cut the ear off, but you know, I can wiggle this thing in here and get that down on there. I don't know about reaching the other one yet. It probably won't work because the socket's so long, but I think that is... It's going to be some semblance of this to get all 4 bolts tight. And maybe I do some grinding too. I don't know. We'll see. Wanted to point that out as some issues I'm running into that I've read about on the forums. Alrighty. I'm going to get this pump back off of here. Finish tightening those bolts up and get the vacuum pump on. Top of the pump, and then I adapted it over to some -6 AN, which comes up to a banjo fitting, which then bolts to the side of the filter housing, and then another banjo, and that one goes to the pressure side of the fuel pump. So that is the fuel system in a nutshell, and it's pretty much all done. So we are just about ready to throw this thing all together. I do have to figure out where to put the computer. I am kind of contemplating trying to come up with something to where like this guy like hangs here. Yeah, shoot, that sensor's in the way. I don't know, I was thinking of trying to put it like somewhere around in here like that. I don't know, I'm debating on this one. I have not figured this out. This is the last fabrication thing I have to come up with, is what to do with this guy. I don't know. I don't have a good plan for it because that lift pump is in the way of like most of everybody else's ideas on how they deal with them. that's it for today's video. I hope you all enjoyed what you saw. Please be sure and hit that little subscribe button, the like button, and all those little buttons you're supposed to hit down there, and leave some comments for me. Be sure and get back to you as soon as I get them. So stay tuned, more content coming, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.